Good evening, everybody. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network, and it's March 15th, 2023. I'm coming to you from my office in Kalamazoo, Michigan. It's about 45 degrees today. So we almost think that we could wear our flip-flops today, but honestly, it's going to rain tomorrow and snow again on Friday. So I'm counting on spring getting here soon, and we can get racing started here in the Midwest. But until then, I'm going to watch NCAA basketball and NASCAR on Fox. And so along that line, I'm very pleased to have as my guest tonight, Nina Burch. She is an associate producer with Fox. She's coming to us from her car because she's had a very busy day. And honestly, we just appreciate, Nina, that you took the time to still be on the show with us. So welcome to the show. And I hope you've had a great day.
I've had a very busy day, but I guess that's to be expected as we prepare for Atlanta this weekend. All three series going. That means a busy weekend on Fox Sports 1. So
Yeah.
please, everybody tune in and catch up on your racing with us this weekend.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of my listeners will be watching if they're not at the racetrack themselves. So Nina, let's start by, why don't you just share a little bit about yourself, so we can get to know you a little bit better personally, your family, your pets, where you live, that kind of a thing.
All right. Well, I am in Charlotte, North Carolina, the home of racing. I've lived here since about 2005, I believe, a long time. I started my career in sports television at ESPN in Bristol, Connecticut, right out of undergrad. I was up there for about a year, and then I came to Charlotte in 2005, sorry. I worked at ESPN for many, many years, and then in 2013, I got a call from Michael Dolan, who I think is now the VP of design at Fox, to come work for his team, and started there. And anyway, so I live in Charlotte. I have a 16-year-old daughter and three fur babies. And I kind of gravitated into the racing world, just happenstance. I was actually in Chicago working for the Big Ten Network, covering college sports up that way. And then COVID happened. And then I didn't have a job. And just luckily, I had connections here still in Charlotte, where I was able to relocate back to Charlotte and join Lindsay Mandia's NASCAR team. So that was 2021, and here we are.
Yeah. And, so many things upset everybody during the COVID. And yet you look back and maybe that was something good that came out of it, that now you're with Fox. And so Big Ten Network, I'll be watching that the next several days. Some of my Big Ten teams are in the March Madness. So I'm a huge college basketball fan. I grew up in Illinois, so I'm an Illinois fan. Our biggest rival was Iowa. And so I'm also a Northwestern fan, so you're probably familiar with them if you live in the Chicago area. So it's a big weekend for television, for Fox, and all the stations that carry all of those sports. So I'm going to be glued to my TV for sure. So Nina, you're an associate producer. Can you tell me what is that? What does your job entail?
It entails a lot of things.
I'm sure it does.
An associate producer is a couple positions down from an actual show producer. And more or less, I'm just cranking out content on a daily basis for Race Hub. Yesterday, I was on a shoot with Corey LaJoy, and I put together video packages that are going to air on Race Hub, Race Day. And those packages can be anything from a feature to a simple B-roll SOT package. So basically, just producing elements within the shows on Fox owned broadcasts.
Okay. So who comes up with the ideas for all of the content?
It's collaborative. This week, I pitched an idea about Atlanta. So it's collaborative. We have a meeting every it feels like every day, but we meet often. Yeah. But that's the best way to get like good content. Like,
sure.
I don't know a lot about racing, right? I came into this position and I've learned a lot about racing, and I know the major characters and I know the major storylines, but not really having that background, I don't know the history. So it's always good to sit in with people who, they live and breathe racing, and to hear them, and then it'll spark something in my head. So it's very collaborative.
Hmm.
And it's been very helpful to me as I learned this sport, for sure.
Oh, and there's so much to it. People think that it's just going around in circles or a road course or whatever it is. And they just don't have a clue if they're not a motorsports fan and they haven't watched, and they hear people talk about it, they think that it's boring and
Right.
this and that. But you just have to get them to the racetrack. That's one of my big goals, is to get and encourage people, especially women, to
Hmm.
go to a race, whether it's a local track or a NASCAR track or NHRA, any kind of a race, and see for yourself, what especially I love when they race at night. Those cars look beautiful going around on the track at night, and the smells and the sounds and all of that. You can't explain that, even though you do the best you can through
Right.
television. But
Right.
unless they go and experience it, they really don't understand.
And that is so true. And even for myself, like, I do have a pretty close connection to the racing industry through my ex, but I never really got into it, even when he was working in the trenches of the sport. And it took me coming here and, getting this job to really get into it. And I think, Melinda, last year I probably went to like 10 races. Like, once you go and you hear those cars and all the, like, I've never been, and I've worked in sports for a long time, like the proximity to the drivers that you as a fan
Hmm.
can have, and
Yes.
how friendly they are and how welcoming everybody is. Like, I can't wait to go back. I unfortunately haven't been able to go to any this year, just because of work and, life things. But I went to Daytona last year. I went to Sonoma last year. I've been to Richmond. I've been to Atlanta, obviously here in Charlotte, and I'm going to Nashville. Like, I'm hooked. So I would
Yeah.
encourage anyone who's never been to the track and who thinks NASCAR is like dumb to actually go. And I tell my friends all the times, like, come to the track with me, experience it. You'll be hooked. So yeah.
Right. That is so, so true. Yeah. And I tell people the same thing. And even if they go to my local track, Kalamazoo Speedway, there's great racing there.
Hmm.
They don't have to spend a lot of money to go to a NASCAR race, several hours away. They can start by going at a local grassroots track. They're all over the country. Give it a
Hmm.
try, and then just gradually work yourself up to maybe a bigger race. And I just think it obviously gets in our blood, doesn't it? For sure. Yeah. So
Yes.
K Dub is one of my very loyal listeners, and she always has good questions. So she says she has a question for you. What college
Sure.
classes would someone look into to go for a career as a sports producer?
So I was a journalism major. I had aspirations to write for a major metropolitan daily. And I mean, honestly, for me, I just networked and I made the right connections. So I don't know what classes to tell you to study. Obviously, anything with communication, anything that's probably more digital media based, anything that helps you navigate the world of social media content would be very helpful, because then you're going to learn how to produce video for
Mm-hmm.
specific audiences. And that's the biggest thing you need to be focusing on when you're in college. Like, and you can do that maybe even on your own, but any communication class that you can take to help you with your writing, anything that'll help you with video content production, um, those would be the best classes to take. Again, journalism major, so I took no television classes, none whatsoever. I knew nothing about television production, but I went and I learned, because it's not hard. If you are creative and you love making content, then you've got the basis right there.
Okay. So you mentioned you just did something with Corey LaJoy. So he's one of my favorite drivers. Now I have a lot of favorites, But I've met him. I listen to his podcast religiously. I love
Uh-huh.
his podcast. I
Okay.
think he's a great driver who hasn't had the opportunity to show what he can do. I think he needs to get into somebody needs to pick him up and maybe put him in the 4 car next year that Kevin Harvick's leaving. So I'm going to put that out there, Corey, because I want to see him in one of those cars because I know he has the talent. Um, and so, as you work in the Charlotte area, like you said, everybody, and you come up with ideas for different kinds of content, different kinds of shows that air, and we all watch Race Hub and all those different things. So those are all familiar. Would you have like an episode or some kind of show that you did with somebody that just really stands out as something you'll never forget?
Well, Denny Hamlin is my favorite driver.
Okay.
I know that's not a very popular opinion.
That's Hey, Kyle Busch is one of my favorites, and that was never popular either, so it's okay.
So really, anything that I can do with Denny is always a plus. But of the things that I've done, I don't the shift. If you guys watch the shift with Josh Sims, I cut one for Todd Gilliland.
Okay.
I don't know what it was about him. He was a good interview. He was fun, and he also kind of has that, like, he was a rookie starting out in the Cup Series, what he learned, and just the way it all came together. It's probably one of my favorite things that I've ever done, and that's across my career. So I just like hearing the stories. We all know the Denny's and the Kyles and, the Kevins. I like telling the stories about a Corey LaJoy. So the story I'm telling this weekend on him is exactly what you talked about. Like, everything he's had to fight for, even though his dad was a racer, and he's still out there trying to prove himself and garner
Mhm.
respect from not only like other drivers, but more importantly, fans, because what he does is such a grind, going out there for the smaller team
Mhm.
and showing up every weekend, putting forth the best effort, even when you don't have the best equipment, you don't have the fastest car, and you're probably not going to win, but I'm going to go out there every single weekend and give it 110%. So,
And that's one of the things that I admire about him. And there's others too that are in that situation, but he just happens to be one that, like I said, after you meet a driver, and I was able to meet him. I ran into him in the parking lot actually
uh-huh.
last year at Phoenix, and so we walked a little bit, and we were able to talk because we were in the garage area, and there weren't a lot of people around, and he's just so kind. He took a picture with me. He thanked me for being supportive, and we just had a wonderful conversation. And I think he's a good person.
Yeah.
He just is. He's a family man, etc. It's funny that you mentioned Todd Gilliland. So I knew Todd Gilliland before Todd Gilliland was in the NASCAR series. He came to Kalamazoo, Michigan, where I live, and
uh-huh.
he raced one of the bigger races here. My son had met his father. Well, we both met his dad, David, at the PRI show like a couple years prior to that. My
uh-huh.
son at the time had a race car, and so he had just made a friendship with David Gilliland. And so then Todd came to Kalamazoo to race one of their big races, and they
uh-huh.
came a couple days early. They rented the track. They invited my son to come and practice on the track with them. I got food. I fed them. I went to McDonald's one day and got everybody food. I mean, he's just one that I've met all his family, his mom, his sister. So he's a special driver for me as well, because I knew him back when he was really just a kid, and he was not even old enough maybe to even race NASCAR, I don't think, at the time.
uh-huh.
And so it's funny how you start, you meet those kids. Natalie Decker's another one that's one of my favorites. Her whole family is friends with me. You meet those people, and like you said, he's funny. He's he would be a great interview. I know just from talking to him. I ran into him in Phoenix last year at the championship race. He was walking through the garage area, and he always called me the brownie lady because I use a system called send out cards to send cards to a lot of people. And you're able to send gifts, and so I sent brownies. And I used to send, because I knew him and I had his address, when he would do well or when I thought he needed to pick me up, I would send him a card with some brownies. So he and his mom even called me the brownie lady. And when he saw me in Phoenix, we were coming towards each other, and he said, "You got any brownies?" I said, "No," but so you develop those friendships and those relationships with people.
Yeah.
And especially I think in your job where you're around them, week after week, probably.
Yeah.
So now, will you be at Atlanta for the race?
No, I'll be in the studio on Saturday, because we have Trucks and Xfinity, I think, are both on Saturday.
They are.
Yep. So I'll be in the studio, and then Sunday is my only day off. So this week I've worked 6 days.
Okay.
So no, I will not be in Atlanta. I think the first race I will be going to will probably be Darlington.
Okay. So when you say you're in the studio on Saturday for the truck race and the Xfinity race, what will you be doing?
I will actually be editing the teas for Sunday's Cup race.
Okay.
But we have live studio programming going on. So we'll be there cranking out content. And I think the weather's supposed to not be great on Friday. So
yeah,
we'll be on standby, coming live.
Okay.
And I'll be, when I say I'm in the studio during race days, we're just there to make sure everything gets done. And if there's any breaking news, like today, obviously all the breaking news, we had a show to kind of rearrange a lot of things. So
yeah. So K-Dub says fan interaction is a big part of racing. Do you have any funny stories of doing a fan interview or a fan you have met that stands out?
In Daytona this year, there were some guys down there dressed as, I don't even know. They had fake mullets and fake beards and raccoon tails, and it was just very interesting and fun, and they were funny, and just, I don't know. Is that like a NASCAR thing to wear a?
Well, I think people, especially that camp, that are in the campgrounds, that maybe are watching the race. Maybe they don't even go into the grandstand area. They're basically partying in the camping area and watching it maybe on TV or on top of their camper, watching it live. And I think it's probably a bunch of guys that this is their weekend away from their wives, girlfriends, whatever. And so it's a way to let loose and have a lot of fun. And probably they're trying to get on television. So that would probably be another reason they were, dressed like that, for sure.
I mean, it was fun for sure. And they were very popular around the track with their outfits. So
yeah, for sure. So Carson, host of ours in the truck series.
Mm-hmm.
He's from my hometown. He's from Portage, Michigan. And so I know them very well as well. So, I like all the coverage that they give Carson, because he's obviously one of my favorites.
Carson is a friend of the show. They do a segment, him and Michael Waltrip do Two Tall Guys.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure you've seen, which are always pretty entertaining.
Yes.
And I think we have some plans to do a few in the upcoming months. So be on the lookout.
He's a very fun kid, and he's serious about his racing, but he's also he has fun when he does it, so that's the way it has to be. Yeah. So what's the most favorite thing about working for Fox and being a producer? What do you like the best?
I think my favorite thing is just, like, I'm a sports junkie, and Fox is a perfect place to really stretch your legs, because we do so much more than just NASCAR. Like 90% of what we do out of the building here in Charlotte is NASCAR. But you know, the Big Ten, that's owned by Fox. I went up there and worked on the Big
Yeah.
Ten network and covered college sports. I can do NFL. There's so many different things that you can do working at a place like Fox Sports. And I think that's probably my favorite thing about working for Fox. Like I've been employed since 2013, more or less. And honestly, unless somebody comes and throws a big old fat bag at me, I don't see myself going anywhere because I really enjoy it. The only reason I think I would leave Fox is if I were actually able to go work for a team. 2311, I would love to work for 2311.
Yeah.
But obviously, like the Hendrick or the Stuart Haas, that would be the only thing that I think could pull me away from Fox.
Okay. Yeah. Because, and your family, your coworkers become family as well. And so, yeah, I can see it. It's hard. It would be hard to leave unless it was just something that you couldn't say no to.
Absolutely. And something like 2311, I could never say no to. So.
No, no, I can see that. They're becoming very popular team among the fans and everybody.
Becoming, oh my gosh, everywhere I go. And I mean, obviously being a minority, I think a lot of people look to 2311 as kind of like something that they can attach to, people that look like me, right?
Yes.
So it's very
Hmm.
popular, especially because Bubba's there. So it's very popular in that regard. But I also think it's just like Michael Jordan. Like,
Yeah.
who's not a fan of Michael Jordan? And knowing that he's in the sport and that kind of backing, I think it just, it has put them over the top. He's the most recognized athlete in the world.
Yeah.
So, it
Yeah,
comes.
for sure. So my husband and I both have our motorcycle licenses, and for several years we went to Mid Ohio to the Superbike races.
Mm-hmm.
And there were several years that Michael Jordan was there because he owned a motorcycle racing team. And a
Okay.
lot of people didn't know that, even if they were Michael Jordan fans. It wasn't something I don't think that he really promoted a lot. Like a lot of people didn't know, but there were two years that I can remember that we saw him there, and he was there watching his motorcycle team, and so that was a lot of fun. And then now to have him in NASCAR, it just gives more credibility to, not that NASCAR needed credibility, but when you have owners coming from a different sport,
Right.
and they were very, like you said, he was probably the number one in my book anyway. I was a Chicago Bulls fan when he was there. He's probably one of the number one well-known sports figures, hands down.
Right.
When he says, I'm going to invest my hard-earned money into NASCAR because I believe it's a great sport, and he, and then you've got Bubba there, and that, then how can you not be like, oh, I wonder what's going on with this NASCAR thing? Because if you weren't a fan, but you were a basketball fan, and now you hear he's an owner, it's made other people take a look at the sport, and I think has really helped the fan base get wider.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think they're doing great things over there, and I wish him and Bubba and Tyler Reddick, success. And
Yeah.
I hope they can get out there this year and both win a lot of races.
Yeah, I do too. I really like Tyler Reddick too, so for sure.
Yeah.
So K-Dub wants to know, have you ever been offered to do a ride, like ride along with somebody at the race? And if so, who would you want it to be with and why? Well, I know you want to go with Denny Hamlin. So have you ever gotten to go for a ride around one of the tracks?
No, unfortunately.
Oh.
Like that's usually reserved for the Caitlin Vincies and the bigger name people. Little old me back there in the background. It's just like, oh, hi.
Yeah.
But I've had some friends that have had the opportunity, but she worked specifically for like a NASCAR publication, and it was part of her responsibility that weekend to write about it. So
okay.
I wish.
Well, maybe someday you got to put that out there. Nina, that that's something you want to do. So we've made it known now tonight that that's something you want to do. And so I think it'll happen at some point if you focus on getting that opportunity for sure.
And I will 100% let you know when it does.
Okay, because I know you'll be filming as you do
Yes.
it. So yeah, for sure. So, so a couple things on my bucket list. One of them is to ride around the track with someone. Now, I've done the ride around at the Richard Petty driving experience. So
Yeah.
I've ridden in that respect. And my son and the driver were laughing at me because I had just had my arm kind of up on the car, and we were going 100 and whatever we were going. And I'm like, oh, this is really fun. Is this as fast as we go? And he started laughing and he said, well, this is as fast as they'll let me go. And so they were teasing me that I must have a need for more speed, because I didn't think that was fast enough, but it was still fun to do that.
I think it would, if there were some kind of way to actually experience a car going as fast as they do, I would love that opportunity. Now,
me too.
I think I might have a mild heart attack, but I think it would be absolutely amazing to actually be in a car, a controlled car going that fast.
I would do it in a heartbeat. If somebody offered that to me, I would not hesitate. I would do it in a heartbeat because it would be definitely someone that was trustworthy, or they wouldn't offer it. And I would love to have that sensation of going, and really knowing, and even just riding in the Richard Petty, you're going 140 or whatever, and that wall is going by so fast. Mm-hmm. And then in my head, I was thinking, okay, we're only going 140. They go 180, 90, close to 200 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 40 of them out there. There's not just one car. And it's, when you think of it in those terms, it's amazing what those drivers do.
Absolutely.
And that we don't have more accidents and wrecks than we do have.
I mean, people can't even drive down 85 without imagine being 40 cars on one track, all in close proximity. I mean, they, for the longest time, and I please don't judge me, I never really looked.
Oh, I lost you, Nina. Whoops, we lost her. Hopefully she'll come back. There she is. I lost you.
Sorry. So if I'm being honest, I never really looked at NASCAR as an actual sport. Like I was one of those people that was like, okay, they just drive around in a circle. Well, 9 times out of 10, it's not even really a circle. But anyways, they just drive around this track. And I never really thought of it as a sport because you have these little tiny guys. But when you really think about the physical endurance of driving a car and maintaining control of a car, a big, heavy stock car at that speed, and how mentally sharp and smart you really have to be in those situations and know how to make the right moves. Like, it's absolutely mind-blowing. It really is absolutely mind-blowing, and they deserve all the respect in the world. And it's pretty amazing.
I totally agree. And it's interesting, there's going to be some Indy drivers. Well, of course there was a couple in Daytona, but there's some of those Indy drivers are going to be driving in some road course races coming up, and they struggle. And now you think Indy cars are a totally different kind of car. I get that,
right.
But the fact that they really struggle just shows that it is difficult to do. And I think sometimes as a fan, and we do take some of that skill for granted. Darn it, Kyle, why can't you win another race? Or Danny, when are you going to win a championship? But
oh gosh.
but it's hard. It's really, really hard. And
it
so
is. Yeah. So much respect to them. It's an amazing talent to have, right? If it were that easy, we would all
everybody
be out
to
there
do it
driving, right?
Yeah, right. So K-Deb says, it sounds like you've been a part of producing many types of racing. What is your favorite type to produce, and what are the hardest races to produce, or what's the hardest thing to do when you're producing a race?
So I don't produce the actual races.
Okay.
I think of me more as like, if you're watching the Race Hub show and you see a Josh Sims shift or more of those lines, that's the type of content I'm
Okay.
producing.
Okay.
But I've heard that road courses are extremely challenging because, when you have an oval or even a tricky triangle, you can set your cameras in certain positions and you can kind of get every part of the track. Whereas road courses, it's just, especially at a place like Coda where there's like, what, 27 turns or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's harder to be in all the places at the right time. And sometimes you miss things. So I would
Yeah.
say those are a little bit more challenging to produce on the NASCAR side,
Yeah.
based off of what I know from people that are actual producers,
Right.
directors of the actual events.
Yeah, and I think that's part of why maybe I'm not a fan of road courses. Watching them on TV is fine, but that wouldn't be one of the races that I would make an attempt to go to and spend my
Right.
money for,
Right.
just because I can't see it all, and I'm the kind of person, I want to see everything. And
Right. Right.
I know they have the big screens up, for you to see, but
Yeah.
yeah. But there's so many good ones, and you can watch them on television, and so I'm okay with doing that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nina, what have I not asked you about that we should know about you or your job, what you do? Because a lot of times I interview young gals and they want to be the next NASCAR or NHRA champion or whatever. And I always encourage them to do that, but I also encourage them to look at all the opportunities that motorsports offers in occupations.
Hmm.
And so that's why I like having women on that are doing something besides driving, so
Right.
they can see that you can be a part of motorsports, NASCAR, whatever it is,
Hmm.
but you don't have to be the driver. So do you have any comments about that? Speak to that just for a second.
Yeah. I mean, there's a plethora of opportunity within motorsports for women. So, and it doesn't have to be driving a car. It also doesn't have to be somebody's assistant. Like, there's so many women in powerful positions within the sport. So, if anybody is interested in this sport and getting in, my first advice would be network. I mean, network like you've never networked before. Be at the track, be present, be in their face, and you will be. You can. I stood right next to Steve Phelps so many times. I've had so many conversations with him, not related to anything related to what I do at work, like just because I'm at the track and he's there and he's very friendly and personable, and you can approach him and talk to him when he's not busy. So be present, and then look at the opportunities out there. For me, if I could be like a PR person for one of the teams, that would be my dream job. Like my absolute dream job within the sport of NASCAR. And those are opportunities out there for young people or
Mhm.
women or whoever.
Right.
So I would say really take a look at what you want to do and see what positions in NASCAR you can translate that into, because they're there.
Yeah.
They're absolutely there. And then be present at that track. The more as big of a sport as it is, it's a very small sport.
It
So if
is.
people know you and they know who you are and they know your name, that's going to help you take your career to places that maybe you wouldn't have been able to, because all it takes is one person to say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I know Nina. Yes, she works at Fox. Yes, she's really good at her job. Oh, you're hiring? Well, let me send Nina your way." And then bam, you've made a connection,
Yep.
possibly gotten yourself a job. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to speak to that just for a second. Then I'm going to let you go because I promised you 30 minutes and we're at 35.
it's fine.
So I've met Steve Phelps a couple times and had conversations. He was at the event you and I were at in Charlotte.
Yes.
And I
Hmm.
had a chance to visit with him and tell him what I did, and that was great. I met I'm a fan of MRN, and so I met one of my favorite guys, the bag man,
Okay.
that's on MRN, Jeff Striegel, who's
Okay.
also on MRN, lives in Grand Rapids. He runs the racetrack at Berlin, which is not that far from me, a little over an hour. And so we've become, fairly well acquainted. And then because I went up and introduced myself to Mike Bagley, he introduced me to Chris Schwartz, who is the president of MRN and Racing Electronics. And so, I wouldn't have known any of those people had I not made the attempt to, because I recognized Mike Bagley. And then, on the other side, as a Kyle Busch fan, I've made a point of becoming friends with Samantha. And so now, when she sees me, whether it's at English Creek where Brexton's racing or it's at a NASCAR race, she knows who I am. She gives me a hug. We talk. I feel like she's more than just Kyle Busch's wife. She's a friend.
Absolutely.
Same with Kelly Earnhardt Miller. I've met her several times. I think she's a lovely person. And so you have to put yourself out there.
You do.
You can't just stand in the background and be like, I wish I could meet Kelly Earnhardt Miller. I walked up to her at English Creek at 10 o'clock at night, and she'd been there all day. We lost Nina. We'd been there. She'd been there all day. She was hot. She had her hair in a ponytail, and she's like, "Oh, I look terrible." Because I said, "Can we get a picture together?" She says, "Oh, I look terrible." I said, "You look like all the rest of us. We all been here. It's been hot." And so I made friends with her. And so, you have to put yourself in those positions so that people know who you are. And that, like you said, then somebody who knows you is going to give you a referral to something. And that's how those jobs come about.
And 100%. If you think in today's day and age, you're getting a job just off of the strength of applying online to a computer, if you're lucky enough to get your resume past the bots, you're genius. But
yeah,
every job I've ever had in my 42 years of living has been through networking. So.
Yeah, that's so very true. So, so on that note, Nina, I hope that at some point we're both at the same race, and that we can connect. And if you ever need a story about women in motorsports, I'm your girl.
we do a women's spotlight, women in motorsports spotlight. So
yeah,
reach out and see if we can collab on anything.
All right, that sounds great. Well, I'm going to let you go because I know you've had a long day. And so thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you in person at the racetrack.
I'm sure you will. I'll keep in touch.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. So what an interesting person she is. And K-Deb, I put your message up there thanking her. So I'm sure she probably saw that. But, we sit down on the weekend and watch a race because we can't get there. And we take that for granted too. And we don't think about all the people that are behind the scenes doing whatever they're doing to make sure that show just flows from one segment to another and all that. And so I love coming across people who do those kind of jobs because sometimes I don't even think about who's behind the scenes. And there you go. And so Nina, thank you so much for being on. So we're going to do a couple fun things. One, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Jade, and I always butcher her last name, Avadisian. If you know, she should just go by Jade, like people go by Cher, because she's going to be, if she's not already, she's really making a name for herself. So she's leading the points in the Extreme Outlaw Midget Series. She's first, and there's 4 guys behind her. She's the winningest driver in the series history. She captured her third career Extreme Outlaw Midget Series win on Saturday night in only her second career start in the Southern Illinois Center. So I want to give a shout out to her, and we're going to try to have when we have our show, we're going to do a weekly shout out to somebody, and maybe more than one. But this week, I wanted to give a shout out to her. We've tried to get her on the show. She's got such a busy schedule, but we're hoping that we can get her on here pretty soon. She's only 16 years old. She led from the pole, according to the article that I've read. And so she's not your average driver. She's somebody that young girls can look up to, and that we can follow and be excited about having a gal like that in motorsports. So I wanted to share about her. I have a list of things that I wanted to mention for sure tonight. So Nina mentioned, about breaking news. So today, the big breaking news was that Hendricks Motorsport got fined $400,000. Excuse me, $100,000 for each of the 4 cars because they manipulated the louvers. The louvers are the little air things on the hood, as I call them, the little things on the hood that the air goes in and out. And somebody other than me can explain it to you better. But $400,000 fine. Of course, they're going to appeal it. But they were and not really, which I think is worse than that, which that's a lot of money, but worse than that, 100 points per driver. So William Byron has just won 2 races in a row, and now he's being docked 100 points, and I think 10 playoff points, if I'm not mistaken. That's hard. I think Kyle Larson now is like 32nd in the point standing. Yes, it's early in the season. Yes, he's a great driver. They all are. They'll make up some of those points. But to have to make up those points and then have made up enough to get into the playoffs and that, it wasn't worth it. Because from what I'm hearing, what they didn't change the speed of the cars. It's just the fact that those flaps, if you will, did not fit correctly. And somebody took it upon themselves somewhere to fix them after NASCAR said, don't touch them. We know they're not perfect. We're going to have them remade, but don't touch them. And they did anyway. And so that's disappointing to me, because that's one of the top teams in all of racing, and to see that they felt like they could still manipulate those and get away with it, or not be penalized for it, or that it was okay to do it even after NASCAR said no, you can't do it. And I don't know all the details. I don't know if somebody at NASCAR said, just go ahead. I don't know. But it's very disappointing to see that happening in our sport, because we need to set a good example for all these kids that are watching, and all the kids that are racing at Millbridge tonight, and kids racing all over the United States and beyond, that somebody has to be in charge. And when the people in charge say, you can't do this, don't do this, and you do it anyway, it gives you a black eye. And I'm just really disappointed in that team and what's happened. So we'll continue to follow it and see what's going on. But I couldn't not mention that today, because that's been the big news all day on NASCAR radio. So interesting that I mentioned Millbridge, because a couple of things. So my co-host, who's been MIA for quite some time because he took a different job, Brett Timmerman, he's actually at Millbridge tonight. His daughter had an opportunity to race there tonight in someone else's car. I know I should remember the young man's name. His car is one that races there a lot and wins a lot. And he offered for her to drive it tonight. So I'm anxious to hear how that goes. I believe it's on Dirt Vision or one of those racing platforms tonight. So I'm going to try to tune in and find out how she's doing in that. But I'm excited for Adriana Timmerman to have a chance to do something like that. That's a big deal for her. So give a shout out to her, and hopefully they're having really good luck tonight. So in regard to that as well, our show has been airing on Wednesday nights live at 7 p.m. So starting on March 26th, not this next week, but the week after that, Sunday, March 26th, we're going to start doing Let's Talk Racing Live on Sunday nights, at least probably through the summer. All of you are out in your shop working on your cars on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. And Brett has a hard time getting on the show with me, and I really want him on the show. So he and I discussed what we were going to do. And so we've changed the show date, at least for the summer, to Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And hopefully maybe you'll be able to tune in live. And if not, that's okay. But it also gives me a chance to, I'm going to do a little bit of other kinds of content during the week. And so I think I'm going to choose Wednesday as one of those days. Wednesday during the day, I'll do some content, and it'll be recorded, and it'll be something that you can listen to later. So just letting you know that starting Sunday, March 26th, this show, Let's Talk Racing Live, will air on Sunday at 7 o'clock. So now, a couple other things. You can't just be on your computer all the time, and I'm on my computer all the time, from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed. And I need to do something different. I can't do that all the time. My arm hurts, my eyes start to go wacky. And so I'm a crafter, and I've been a crafter ever since I was a little girl. And I have a Cricut crafting machine. And so at Christmas time, I made a lot of fun crafts for my family. And so I'm going to go back to at least one day a week, or part of a day, or whatever. I'm going to go back and start making some of my racing crafts. So I made these fun little magnets. There's no such thing as too much racing. Be fast or be last. I'm not speeding, I'm qualifying. And when nothing goes right, go left. That's just a few of them, and they're magnets. And so you can hang them on your refrigerator or whatever. And so I'm going to make some more of those, give them out as gifts or prizes or whatever it might be. I've been making some keychains, which are kind of fun. And all you have to do is just open this up. It's a card holder, and open it up, and you can put a picture down on either side. So I've been making keychains, and those are really fun, and they're quick to do. And so if you win a prize, or if you're on my shows or whatever, you're probably going to get one of those in the mail. And then I also made some cups, and it says Women's Motorsports Network, and it says I love Women's Motorsports Network. These cool little cups. And the last thing I'm going to show you is, if I can reach it. So I made some of these kind of as a joke for my daughter, but this is my daughter's boyfriend, Brock Gannis. He drives the number 5. And so I bought these at Dollar Tree, which is now $1.25 Tree. And I bought a bunch of these. And so then I put the numbers on them. They came with a checker around them, and I put the number and names on them. And so I gave them to my daughter, one for Brock, one for Maddie, and one for Jesse, the three that are in our, racing team. And so, when they're racing, we can hold the sign up when they go by and embarrass the heck out of them because they're all kids. But that was really fun to make those. And if I could find some more of these, I'd make some more. But anyway, hopefully I'll be able to find something similar. But excuse me. So, I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of sharing and writing content. I do a lot of the magazine and all those things. But I'm feeling like I have to spread out a little bit, do some other fun motorsports things. And so I'm working on that, and I'm going to be a little bit more varied in the content that we bring you on Let's Talk Racing Live. We're going to do a contest like the one we're going to do tonight. We're going to do a trivia contest, and just do some different things starting Sunday, March 26th, when we change our night that we're going to be on, and we're just going to do some other fun stuff. So the last thing we're going to do today, and this is for anybody that's listening live or who listens later, because we have a lot of people who listen later, we're going to do a trivia contest. And I have about 100 die-cast cars. They're all different. I had a friend whose uncle passed away. He was a collector. The wife was elderly. She was going to take him to Goodwill. And my friend said, "Oh, no, don't take him to Goodwill. My friend Melinda will take him." And so I gave her a little bit of money for them, but I got probably about 50 that are not in a box. Some little boy very possibly has played with it. That's okay. It's not a big deal to me. I have probably another 50 or more that are in boxes that are pristine condition. But we're going to give this one away. It's Jeff Gordon. And so in order to win this car, here's what you need to be able to do. I've got a trivia question for you. So all you have to do is answer. I'm going to share this post tonight and share the trivia question. And the first one to answer it correctly, either here or on the post that I'm going to put out later with this video, will win that car, and then I'll mail it to you. So here's the question for tonight. In 2007, Jimmy Johnson won his second consecutive NASCAR championship. Who owned the number 48 Lowe's machine? So in 2007, Jimmy Johnson won his second consecutive championship. Who owned the number 48 Lowe's machine? And no, this is not the number 48. This is the number 24. So it probably will give you a hint as to perhaps who owned that car. So it's been a great night here. We've had a very interesting guest. I've met so many amazing people through the Women's Motorsports Network and through this podcast. I'm very excited to see who am I going to meet next. So I hope everybody has a really great week. I hope that it's sunny and warm, and that when spring comes, the ground dries up and we can get back to racing very soon, because I've really missed it. And I know all of you have too. And so hopefully in a few weeks, wherever my travels may take me, hopefully maybe I'll see you at the track. Good night.